I can see you clearly.
Hey, beautiful people. How's it going? You are listening to the second episode of Tu Tia Bruja. I am Bex Carlos, your host. Thank you for listening and being with me. I know that we're all feeling very heavy, as we should be. It's hard to be in a good place, when there's so many ugly people coming out of the woodwork that you knew that are just stating really backwards ass opinions. So I really ask that all of you are taking care of yourselves and doing whatever you need to feel balanced. One thing that's important to me in my efforts for decolonizing and my efforts for creating more of a world that I want to see, I have been practicing witchcraft seriously since 2015. I always had kind of an interest in it before and would dabble in candles and stuff like that. And I've been in a lot of different groups, to find my people that want to practice magic, but also respect the intersections that magic practitioners take up, because not one witch is the same. Not one bruja is the same. We're all different. We have different practices. And I think that it's important that there are spaces that support and back people of color and Black folk when they're uncomfortable when somebody does a microaggression, which I think happens very often in the metaphysical and witch community. A lot of people don't realize that if you are not making the effort to decolonize your magic as well as just your other beliefs, you are using magic as a tool of white supremacy. You're part of the problem. It's been really hard for me because I've been in a lot of groups, and the common factor in them is that they strive so hard to be nice and to make sure that they're protecting white feelings over anything else. I've been kicked out of quite a few, and I'm not going to go on a whole thing and complain about all these groups because I don't want to highlight the shitty ones. I want to highlight the good ones. The one that I'm going to highlight is Revolutionary Mystics. Revolutionary Mystics is a group of intersectional radical witches who practice, and there aren't a lot of these groups that exist, so I think that when you find one, it's really good to add to the community that exists there. Megan Alexandria is the creator of Revolutionary Mystics. In addition to creating this safe space, they are also a Hoodoo Rootworker, a paranormal researcher, a medium, speaker, candle maker. They are going to talk more about efforts to make candle magic for specific purposes that radical Black and brown witches can use in their practice. I could just gush so much, but I'm going to stop. All right, here we go. This conversation with Megan Alexandria. Megan, I'm so excited to have you on Tu Tia Bruja. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is really cool to connect with another anti-white supremacy witch, and I'm excited to be here, so thank you for having me.
Of course, and you're a podcaster too.
Yes.
We should become like an audio coven.
We really should.
Before we really dive into it, I want to light a yellow candle because I'm really trying to attract a lot of joy and a lot of creativity during this really tumultuous time. And for everyone else out there who feels like they really need to attract those things, it's for you as well. Take a deep breath in and out. Megan, you started Revolutionary Mystics. How did that group come to be?
Well, that group, interestingly enough, in the very beginning was a group of just me and like 2 or 3 of my closest friends, because they are allies that, I felt like I could share safe space with and discuss like various magical things, et cetera, and so forth. And it was kind of one of those things where I knew that I needed to make the group I wanted to make, but I was like building up the courage to just do it because I had this idea in my head that either no one would want to join or it just wouldn't work out. And, I had all of these excuses, of course, but once I was able to, move past my self-saboteur at some point, I was like, you know what, fuck it. I reached a fuck it point and I just went for it. And, it's really just kind of taken off, and I don't do a whole lot to grow it. It kind of just grows itself, and that's really cool, but it's really fucking awesome to have a worldwide community of radical witches, sharing space on the internet.
A lot of the groups out there are a lot of Eurocentric based things and practices and beliefs, and that doesn't fit everybody and actually be really harmful.
I think that it's rare to have those kinds of spaces, and that's part of why it's so important to have them, is because those Eurocentric witchcraft spaces and that Eurocentric witchcraft culture, it takes up almost all of the space and that doesn't fit all of us. And so it's important for all of us to take up as much room as possible and start occupying space and creating more space for our type of magic and our cultures and things like that,
Yeah, to be able to free yourself of the emotional labor of having to explain this isn't for you, because it's a responsibility and also a burden, because people can really hurt themselves going down a road that they don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some discussion in various witchcraft communities about, the types of like spiritual abuse that come out of these Eurocentric witch spaces and things like that. And, there is moments of friction in our group too, but I think we've reached a really good place where I don't find myself having to explain stuff to a non-POC witch anymore, because we have enough white allies in our group. They know it's their job to jump in and take on that labor. And I really, really appreciate that, because it wasn't always that way, and you're right, it can be dangerous and also very exhausting. So, that's one of the things that I appreciate about that space.
One of the things that your group does, amongst being just a really amazing tool for baby witches, is you have a monthly candle subscription.
Yeah, I do. It came to me because when I started creating all of my spells and things like that, all the candle offerings, people were like really excited, more than I imagined that they would be. And so if I remember correctly, it just kind of like came up in conversation. Like people would just say, I want all of them. Like when I go to pick on the website, like it's hard to choose because I want all of them. And so I was like, well, how about I figure out a way to make it to where you can get all of them, and getting all of them all at once is a bit much for anybody to try to manage, but getting a candle every month, a different candle every month. And I try to choose them in a way that feels energetically appropriate. I'm a medium too, so every month I kind of sit with the collective energy and select what the candle of the month is going to be. And, people like it so far, and I'm really liking it too. I'm actually getting ready to start another type of subscription, because not all witches can practice their craft at home for various reasons, and so it was asked a few different times by, multiple witches. They were like, what about, because I do candle services for people too. And so I'm going to create another candle subscription that is for people who just want me to do the spell work for them every month too. That way we can kind of accommodate everybody.
Just learning about witchcraft, the craft, trying to figure out that space and things that are for you. Candles are so easy, and they're so, in my experience, prompt. If you want a solution, it's going to come pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're honestly my favorite magical tool to work with. I gather that's probably because I'm like a quadruple Aries, and there's a lot of fire in my chart, like just in general. So I like fire and I love candles, and I just like, you're right, that there is an immediate response to when you light your candle. They do have quicker results that they produce. I also sense that that's because fire is a cardinal element. So it has that energy of initiative and creation and that spark of energy. So yeah, if you want something on a quicker timeline, candles are often the best way to go.
With all that Aries, definitely makes sense for you. I have 2 fire signs in my chart as well, Leo and Sagittarius. So I also have love of fire. Do you do all the artwork as well for the label?
Yeah, I do everything. If anything you see that is of Revolutionary Mystic, that was me doing it from start to finish, completely DIY. There's very few things that I like delegate out to other people, and it's usually boring stuff, tech stuff for my website, But all the creative stuff, yep, that's me.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you're a medium too. What other magical gifts have presented themselves to you, at this point in your life?
Oh, at this point in my life, it's interesting because I wear many hats. And what's been happening lately when I've been invited to speak or teach or be interviewed like this on a podcast, and, folks ask for, how do we introduce you? Like, what do you want us to say? Like, what is it that you do? I do a lot of stuff. And so I've been trying to figure out a way to sum it up or condense it. And there's not really, but I will tell you that I am a medium. And I'm also a Hoodoo Rootworker. So that means I'm a conjure doctor, what American culture calls a witch doctor. I'm also an astrologer, and I teach, and I'm a speaker. And I also am a paranormal investigator and resolution specialist. So
look at that occult resume.
Thanks. I love the occult. It's my entire world, my life. And I can't get enough of it. So, we'll see how many more hats I end up creating for myself.
I feel you though, because once I realized, wow, magic is the only thing that makes sense to me. And I figured out how to do that professionally. I just started falling into my power in a way that I never thought that I could. And it's both amazing and it's both really terrifying. And I'm like, who gave me this much control over things?
I find it's also really healing though, too. As a person with multiracial ethnicity, I find that exactly what you're saying of that conjuring of your own power in a way that you never imagined you could or didn't believe you could is reclaiming something that colonization has systemically taken away from us. And so, that's why I'm very insistent upon saying witchcraft is a revolutionary act. Every time you light a spell, anytime you learn about the practices of your ancestors, all of those things, you're healing your lineage and you're healing yourself because you're taking back something that was removed from us. And that is extremely powerful,
In doing these things that connect to our ancestors, herbalism is wonderful. There's a reconnecting thing about that.
You're right about when we start to work with things, herbs, because as a root worker, think about what does root worker mean? A lot of times when I say I'm a Hoodoo root worker, people are like, you're a what? And so, Hoodoo is a practice, a type of witchcraft, we'll say. And being a root worker is just saying that I'm somebody who can prescribe magic to people and also work spells for them. And it's something you have to apprentice for, et cetera, et cetera. And it's something that's also passed on down your family line. And getting to study the herbs, all the herbs that are in my online shop and things like that, growing all of those herbs here at my home, touching them with my hands, you really end up developing a really close relationship with those plant spirits. And what's interesting is it's a relationship with the plant spirits, and also it connects something that was missing between you and your ancestors too, because I know I am working the same type of spells, I'm touching the same types of medicine. These are the same roots that my ancestors were using in their spells. And that feels very sacred and also very healing,
That's wonderful that you have the opportunity and the gifts to do that.
It's pretty cool. I know not everybody gets a chance to have garden space. And I know that because most of my life I haven't had a backyard or anything. If you get a chance to even just get roots or herbs from your local botanica or, your local witch, and just getting to know them and study them and feel them and smell them and start to really appreciate that plant spirit, it makes your magic so much more potent.
You just inspired the plant mom in me, because I've always had the worst green thumb. You just talking about reconnecting with the plants of your ancestors really hit me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I'm a plant mom too. And, what's funny about the not having a green thumb thing that I want folks to know, because I share a lot about my plants on Instagram, mainly in my stories, because that's where I do most of my communication on Instagram. But I think people think I have and maybe I do have a green thumb now, but I didn't always. And I said the same thing that you just said. A lot of people say that to me too. Oh, I wish I could grow stuff like that. I totally have a black thumb. I used to say that, I really like plants, but I can't keep them alive was my mantra forever. And basically what ended up happening was my interest and curiosity and my love for them grew so strong that I was like, no, I want to figure this out. And there are still some plants that I like keep killing, and I'm still trying to figure them out. But, you know, like you get to learn about different types of soils and their different needs and their, you know, the lighting and the pots and everything. It's its own type of magic. It's earth magic, you know?
American media has really interpreted like a witch doctor to be this like extreme sort of malevolent magic.
Mm-hmm.
What was a project that you saw, you had a lot of hope for, and then when it actually came out, it just fell flat?
Ah, so many things. I forget what the actual title of the series is on Netflix, but it's Brazilian, and I think it's Siempre Bruja. Yeah, I had a lot of hope. Somebody shared it in the Revolutionary Mystics group on Facebook, and I was like, oh, that looks so cool. Like, I was like stoked, like, I'm going to watch that on my day off. Like, that's going to be the thing. It's going to be magical and rad. And then, you know, it was a total let down. It was a slave narrative. It was so white centering. Like, she falls in love with her fucking slave master. Like, it was so disappointing. I would have loved to see that story go somewhere else because I felt like it held so much potential, but then it did nothing new. I just kind of ended up like chucking it in the pile of like, this is shitty examples of witchcraft, you know?
I was really disappointed by that one too. I had the opportunity to go to Salem, Massachusetts. The one thing that I was really, I guess, surprised is by the fact that Tituba, who was the only one who pled guilty to practicing witchcraft because she knew it would spare her life.
Mm-hmm.
And she was already like an enslaved woman, so they couldn't really take her property because that was really the whole purpose of the trials, was to just take people's riches, and anybody who was like a town loner or just kind of, you know, the outliers of what the town deemed acceptable fell victim to the trials. And so Tituba, I always thought she died in
Mm-hmm.
Salem, but no, she didn't. The thing about that is unfortunate, nothing else is known.
So the illusion is that our history and our stories are lost. And it's a huge myth across both the African-American diaspora and also Native American culture too. And these things haven't been lost. We're just told that they're like gone. But if you dig deep enough, you'll see your ancestors left behind clues and hints everywhere. And if you follow that trail of like mystical breadcrumbs, like eventually you get to find the stories that aren't being told on mainstream platforms like TV. That's the only way you get to learn about anything about hoodoo. There's like hardly anything out there in regard to like TV shows or movies, you know, and all of it's relatively inaccurate too.
So many people now are taking the term witch or bruja, and you know, there are so many other terms, and really taking it as a power term for themselves. And I'm like, yes, everyone just fall into your power. That's how things get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Once folks realize just owning that, if you can even just own that word for yourself, is so powerful in and of itself, because words are magic, but also everything you do is magic if you can wrap your head around that. And, you know, that's one of the things that I love about hoodoo is it's so practical that everything you do, you can do in a hoodoo way. Like when I plant my plants, I do it in a hoodoo way. You know, I'm very conscious of the planetary correspondences, what the day of the week, what phase the moon is in, what time of day it is. And, you know, all things of that nature, just like I would if I was lighting candles. You know, we pay attention to that stuff. Or when the energy gets really rough in our house, that's when we realize it's time to break out a floor wash. We did that the other week. So we don't even like sweep or mop in our house in a way that is mundane. Everything has become magic. And that's one of the cool things that you can develop as a witch, like over your lifetime.
It's just about having intention in everything you do.
Yeah.
And for some people, that part's hard. I don't really work with sigils personally, but when someone told me that you could paint a sigil on your face when you're doing your makeup, I was like, oh shit. It really is astounding when you really think about how you can put intention in everything you do.
Everything. Like you can, like part of why hoodoo is so great about that is because hoodoo A lot of times when we talk about casting spells, we use the phrase throwing tricks because our magic is tricky in that it's very clever and it's not always a big spread on an altar and a big, ceremonial type ritual. It's not always like that. A lot of times it's a simple thing like, oh, I put a few drops of money drawing conjure oil in my washer when I was washing my clothes, it makes it more abundant, things like that, it just opens a whole world. And then you want to like do it to everything, your car, your purse, all of it. You should, and you can.
Well, thank you so much, Megan, for spending this time with me. Before I let you go, where can people find you and what things do you have coming up in the near future?
Well, in the very near future, I am teaching at the Modern Witches Confluence. I do not have the dates memorized because I have so much going on, but if you look up the Modern Witches Confluence, they are doing a virtual event, which is usually not a virtual event. This is their first time doing it virtual, but they have an amazing lineup of teachers and presenters. It's a really cool event. That's one of the things I've got coming up. I will probably also be doing another witch walk, virtual witch walk. If you don't know what witch walk is and you love witchcraft, you should totally check out witch walk. It's open marketplace that is usually held in downtown Santa Ana in California. And it's all just witches selling their wares and their services. But since we're, in the middle of the pandemic, it's also virtual. So you can likely catch me there over the summer too. And then you can find me on every platform. I have a YouTube channel. You can find me on Twitter. You can find the podcast. Revolutionary Mystic Podcast is on every single thing like iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all of it. I'm on Instagram, of course, and my website is where my shop is. If you want to come check out the candles, there's like over 80 different candle spells and counting, and all kinds of other different things that you might need, like herbs that I've totally, handcrafted and created those blends for. And then the other place you can find me is on Patreon. So yeah, I'm kind of all over the place, but that's where you can find me.
How does that phrase go? Toss a coin to your witcher.
Yes, I love that.
We should have a big deep breath in and out. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I really had such an amazing time being able to sit down and have conversations about magic. I love this stuff, guys. Magic, the occult, it's my heart. There's nothing that makes sense to me in a way like it does. Being able to find your power, to be able to put all your energy and focus into wishing for things that you want and making them happen is so powerful. And I am so glad that there are people like Megan Alexandria making sure that there are spaces where people can feel heard and seen. All of the links to check out Megan Alexandria and how to support are in the show notes. I've also included some more resources on how to be a better ally to Black people. So please check out different organizations that you can donate to fund protesters, in addition to some television shows that give a perspective of Black folks that maybe we don't see. So check those out. In addition, I really would love to give praise right now for a Black Indigenous owned shop here locally where I live, because honestly, there's not a lot of Black owned or Indigenous owned metaphysical or witch shops. And in the efforts of supporting Black people, we definitely have to support fellow Black witches. So please check out how you can support Sincerely the Craft. They are located in Belleville, Illinois. They have an amazing selection of stuff, and if you don't live close enough to pick stuff up curbside, they will deliver your items for $4.99. This is not an ad. I just really want to highlight this shop, and I really want to put a spotlight on them and throw money at them. Go check them out. Thank you again for supporting the podcast. You can find us on social media at Tutia Bruja. You can find me at Bex B. Caston on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to keep up with the show, if you want to collaborate with us in some way or donate a product to give away, I do that on episodes. Definitely send me an email. The information's on the website. I appreciate you. I love you. I hope you're taking time to take care of yourself. Have a good one. Bye.
I can see you clearly.